the matriarch of a powerful South Carolina family.
All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye. Casting votes on two separate governing boards, something known as dual office holding, something outlawed in the South Carolina Constitution.
South Carolina has a more aggressive form of it. The idea behind it is to prevent corruption, or probably also to prevent the appearance of corruption.
Despite multiple Attorney General's office opinions, this elected office holder doesn't plan to give up her positions of power.
Could you just give us a few minutes and talk to us about this issue that we've raised, please?
The Attorney General's opinion is just an opinion, and there's other lawyers that have different opinions. But.
Okay.
The state's now investigating after we started asking questions.
You think she can remain on this technical college board and be an elected school board member, knowing what you know right now?
Probably not.
Well, school boards from elementary to higher education play a major role in the future of our children and how your tax dollars are spent. And the people who hold these board positions hold a lot of power.
And control multi-million-dollar budgets. That's why South Carolina put a ban in its constitution preventing one person from sitting on two governing boards at the same time.
Queen City News Chief Investigator Jody Barr tonight found a politician who's been doing this for decades, holding multiple positions of power.
So at this time, we're honored to have the Honorable Judge Paul Burch with us this evening. He is going to come and he's going to administer the oath of office to our board members.
South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Paul Burch, robe and all, swore in the winners of last November's Chesterfield County School Board election. One of those winners,
we'll have Miss Burch that was reelected to her board seat.
The judge's wife, Kimberly Burch.
The reason it's an honor is not because my boss told me to be here to do it. It's because so many times you hear the circuit judge is the conscience of a community. It is an honor to administer the oath. If you will raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Kimberly Burch was elected to the school board in 2006.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get the meeting started, please.
Burch is also a member of the Northeastern Technical College Board. She chairs the college's Government Relations and Affairs Committee since last fall.
All in favor of the said motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye. We worked to figure out whether Burch was voting on both the Chesterfield County School District Board and the Technical College Board.
I ask for an approval of the agenda.
Our video proved that. But was Kimberly Burch holding two offices in violation of the South Carolina Constitution? We turned to the South Carolina Attorney General's office for that answer. The Attorney General publishes legal opinions to its website. An opinion comes after a public official asks the AG for advice on some sort of legal question. The AG then publishes the opinion, detailing how the office believes a court would rule on the question. Dual office holding opinions are so common, the AG's archive has a built-in link for the public to click to search them. In the past decade, the AG published 100 separate opinions on dual office holding. In dozens of opinions, including this 2011 opinion, the AG's office wrote, "We have determined numerous times that members of county school boards hold offices within the meaning of the dual office holding provision." In 2002, the AG's office published this opinion when asked whether a member of the Northeastern Technical College Board is subject to the dual office holding provision. The AG's office wrote, "It is my opinion that such position would also constitute an office. This office has advised on several occasions that members of the various technical education commissions would be considered office holders for dual office holding purposes." That opinion was written by the AG Solicitor General, Bob Cook, a lawyer who heads the AG's opinion section and a lawyer who spent nearly 50 years in the AG's office.
He contested
To check those opinions, we took our findings to someone else who knows something about constitutional law, University of South Carolina constitutional law professor Scott Barries.
But South Carolina has a more aggressive form of it. You're just banned from holding dual offices even if they don't conflict with each other. The idea behind it is to prevent corruption, or probably also to prevent the appearance of corruption.
South Carolina's constitutions ban dual office holding dating back to Reconstruction. The ban states no person may hold two offices of honor or profit at the same time. Barre says the state constitution does not include exceptions for school board members or board members of the Northeastern Technical College.
So it comes up a lot. It's a good thing that it comes up because it means that the local attorneys, the local county attorneys, or the city managers, or whoever it might be, are paying attention to whether this prohibition is being violated. Occasionally, it's private citizens that bring the issue up too, though.
Burch was appointed to the College Board in 1997 by then-Governor David Beasley. State records show Burch's term ended in 1999. In the past 24 years, she's never been reappointed, holding the Technical College Board position as a holdover appointee ever since. Although the college's bylaws state no member can serve more than 3 terms or 9 years or until a successor is appointed. In nearly 25 years, lawmakers never appointed anyone to replace Kimberly Burch. Burch calls the small South Carolina town of Pageland home. It's the heart of her school board district. We asked Burch to interview with us several times for this report, but she would not agree to meet. Instead, when we laid all of this out in an email to her, Burch responded saying she's surprised her unpaid college board position, where she's never taken an oath, could possibly constitute dual office holding. Burch says she got her own legal advice from a private attorney who she would not name. Her attorney disagreed with the AG's opinion, telling Burch a court would find dual office holding only happens in cases where oaths of offices are required. Burch took an oath on the school board, but the Technical College Board apparently doesn't require one.
So a school board member who assumes an appointed position with voting power on a technical college board or vice versa, whatever office they took first, by law they lose it?
They abdicate the office, but they still get to exercise the power of that office until legally they are declared not to be the holder of that power.
We went to Pageland to find Burch to ask her what she planned to do with what we found and if she planned to step down.
Hey, Ms. Burch. Could you just give us a few minutes and talk to us about this issue that we've raised, please?
Burch's husband, Judge Paul Burch, the most senior circuit court judge in the state, explained his wife's disagreement with the AG's office.
Is that running?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just,
What about cutting it off?
I don't know if we could do that.
But y'all don't put anything on there about me, because it's none of my business.
Yeah, I know.
It would be improper for me to get into it.
Well, it's just, you swore in, I will be showing that, and you being a circuit court judge, it's like, well, the public may assume you would know.
No, there is, as far as my understanding, there is no court precedent out there that would even come close to ruling on that. And the Attorney General's opinion is just an opinion, and there's other lawyers that have different opinions. But for me to say anything about how a court would rule would be highly improper. I've just heard others say, if you don't have 2 oaths of office, they don't know why those opinions are out there.
So I don't know.
I
That's
think
what.
the only thing you say is that's just an opinion, and all the lawyers have different opinions.
Sure. I guess we wait.
We waited outside that Pageland restaurant for nearly an hour so we could finish our interview with Kimberly Burch, but she did not come back outside. Coming up, we take our questions to South Carolina's seat of power.
How are you guys?
To find the lawmakers responsible for replacing Kimberly Burch, lawmakers who dodged our request for interviews.
But if Paul Burch wasn't involved, would this be a different response from the delegation? I don't think so. You think she can remain on this technical college board and be an elected school board member, knowing what you know right now?
Probably not.
Despite what we uncovered, Kimberly Burch might not have to go anywhere. It's not unusual in the news business to ask a public official for an interview, then be ignored. Sometimes, when the story calls for it, you can do it without them. Other times, finding the people responsible for fixing a problem is necessary.
The Senate please come to order.
We went to the South Carolina State House last week looking for 5 lawmakers, Senators Gerald Malloy and Penry Gustafson, and Representatives Pat Hennigan, Cody Mitchell, and Richie Yao. The 5 make up the Chesterfield County Legislative Delegation, the lawmakers responsible for finding people to serve on the Northeastern Technical College Board. None of the 5 would agree to interview with us about the questions we uncovered with Kimberly Burch's positions of power. Our first stop.
How are you guys? What's going on?
Representative Richie Yao's House office.
I want to talk to you about Kim Burch and the situation with the delegation.
Yao was the only one of the 5 who invited us in when we found him in his office last week.
The way the law reads, that we'll have to take it up, but we don't get rid of people, but we replace them, or when new people are appointed.
Does the delegation believe that Ms. Burch is violating the dual office holding provision?
We haven't met, and there's so many interpretations that we have, and so I've sent off to get opinions on it. Not official opinions, but I've asked legal for advice on it.
What do you believe at this point?
Well, it doesn't matter what I believe, it matters what's the law. I'll go by what the law says and we'll go from there.
We tried to speak with Representatives Cody Mitchell and Pat Hennigan. We couldn't find them between State House meetings to ask what they plan to do to investigate the dual office holding question.
What was Senator Williamsburg?
We found the senators late in the day at this committee meeting. Like the House members, Malloy and Gustafson got the same messages we sent before we showed up to find them last week.
Hey, I'm Jody Barr with Queen City News out of Charlotte.
Nice to meet you. Are you here to talk to me about Chesterfield and the appointment?
Kim Burch.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And you got me on film right now.
Well, that's why I emailed you some days ago saying...
I know.
Gustafson says she was too busy with Senate business to deal with the questions we raised in our messages to her office last month. But she did ask for yet another Attorney General opinion specific to Kimberly Burch.
It is absolutely clear what the law is on appointments, and it's up to us legislators, us senators, to clear it up when there's a problem. So rest assured, it's when you brought it to my attention, that's when I realized.
Okay.
So if I didn't fully respond, I'm sorry about that. I actually appreciate the fact that you brought that to my attention, and we'll be taking care of that as soon as we can. And I promise you, we will.
Do you all agree as a delegation that the Attorney General's opinions regarding this situation, that Ms. Burch is dual office holding?
Well, I will tell you, most of the time I don't disagree with the Attorney General. Very rarely do I disagree with the Attorney General. And we ask for opinions from him for this very purpose, to clear up things. So
okay.
Probably yes.
You think she can remain on this technical college board and be an elected school board member, knowing what you know right now?
Probably not. But again, I have to really look at it carefully, and frankly, I have not.
Okay. Senator Gerald Malloy is the longest serving member of the Chesterfield County delegation. He's also practiced law for 35 years.
Can we talk to you about this situation with Kim Burch?
Very, very briefly. I'll just tell you, I'm aware of it. When I talked to the delegation, what the delegation did was they sent a note. And first of all, it's 1% of the district for me, for mine. 3% of the county is mine. 3%.
Malloy never responded to any of our emails we sent him last month. Emails that included every detail we've reported here and copies of the Attorney General opinions showing Kimberly Burch is likely violating the dual office holding prohibition. Instead of responding to our questions, Malloy admitted he called Burch's husband, Judge Paul Burch. Malloy says the judge told him what the judge told us on that sidewalk in Pageland.
There is no court precedent out there that would even come close to ruling on that. And the Attorney General's opinion is just an opinion, and there's other lawyers that have different opinions. But I've just heard others say, if you don't have 2 oaths of office, they don't know why those opinions are out there.
So that ball is in their court right now. They're aware of the situation. You got a circuit court judge who, as my understanding, I called him and asked him, you can't have 2 offices if you're in government. I'm not certain what the issue is. They said if it's got to be sworn offices, or if it's not, but you can only have one.
Malloy wouldn't give his opinion on whether he, as a licensed attorney, believes those AG opinions or what he'll ask his delegation to do with this.
But if Paul Burch wasn't involved, would this be a different response from the delegation?
I don't think so. I think that he's not involved. I think that it's his wife, right?
It is his wife, but
I mean, so he's technically not involved. I mean, it's a decision that she has to end up making, and the delegation needs to end up seeing whether or not they need to end up acting or not.
Well, as a whole,
right?
But as an attorney in that circuit, is there some hesitation from you to get to the bottom of this, given that
hesitation on anything in my life, Jody?
Well,
I'm just telling you.
I would think that you know.
But we're not speculating here. We're just talking about an issue that you've uncovered after 25 years now.
I want the public to know you're the senior senator in the delegation, and that some may look at you and say, Malloy's an attorney, he's a smart attorney. You had to know.
Well, you've been talking to my wife or somebody?
I know your reputation. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. But I just wanted to make sure that.
So I don't know I don't know what happened then. I haven't researched what happened then.
If it's determined that someone is holding two positions of honor, violating the South Carolina Constitution, should that person resign?
I believe that it would be incumbent on any public official to resign the first position, just based on the fact that South Carolina law says you've abdicated that first position.
But the law is on Kimberly Burch's side for now. Although the USC law professor says she technically abandoned the Technical College Board when she was elected to the school board, state law allows her to continue holding and voting in both offices. That is, until the delegation decides to replace her, something the delegation hasn't done in 25 years and doesn't appear ready to do anytime soon.
Doesn't seem to me to be proper to hold on to the authority of that position. However, there's South Carolina case law that says you can continue to exercise that authority until a court declares you to have abdicated it. So I think there'd be reason for a person in that situation to think, well, I can continue to act as long as everybody's okay with it.
Last week, we informed South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster about our findings. The governor's office responded late Friday with this letter to the legislative delegation. In it, the governor's office agreed with the information we uncovered, writing, absent additional information or clarification, concurrent service by Ms. Burch on both the commission and the school board would seemingly violate the constitutional prohibition of dual office holding. The governor's letter also revealed an AG opinion from 32 years ago, an opinion then Representative Kimberly Burch asked for back when she was a member of the South Carolina House. That opinion was a dual office holding question. The governor also informed the delegation that 8 of the 9 Northeastern Technical College board members' terms are expired. The governor asked the delegation to send him names so those members can be either reappointed or replaced. The governor's office sent this letter to the delegation telling them there's nothing the governor can do here until the delegation sends the governor another person to appoint to replace Kimberly Burch. If the delegation fails to find someone to replace Burch, there is another step to remove her from the college board. A taxpayer would have to go to the Chesterfield County Courthouse and file a lawsuit asking a judge to rule on the dual office holding question. That lawsuit would be filed in the same courthouse where Judge Paul Burch presides and where his portrait hangs.